Hello! No, this isn't the start of the video yet. It's me, but from the future. I've come back to warn you that this video is very long. I'm still in mid-edit and it's like, wow, this is really long. So I thought what I'd do is just let you know I'm going to put, when I upload this to YouTube, in the description below, the time stamps of where you can find various bits of the build and stuff. And also apologise because this was kind of made a little bit off the cuff. It wasn't really planned. I thought I'd just do it as I went, and because of that I make loads of mistakes. I have to correct myself. The audio is sometimes very bad and I'm in mumble mode. When I'm sort of doing things and I'm not thinking about talking to a camera, I'm just mumbling to myself. It sounds a bit like... If you hear that noise, that's just me chatting away to myself. And where appropriate I've put subtitles, and other times I can't even understand what I'm talking about. So I apologise for that, but let's start the video off. Good luck, see you at the end. Hello, a new quad with a bit of a difference because it is not ready to fly or even bind to fly. It is a kit. It's the Eachine Tyro99. Now, I know there's already been a whole bunch of videos of people doing this, and I've deliberately not watched them because I knew I was getting this, even from some of my friends doing it. So I didn't want to know much about it because I didn't want it to influence what I was going to do. But I wanted to get hold of this because I've never done like a build video, and I really do think there's some benefits to people having a go and putting something together, because when you're getting one of these bind and fly or plug and fly kits, you may still need to go back at it with a soldering iron and fix things and put things back together, and knowing how to do that is really, really useful. The big selling point of this one is the price. Currently under £78 or under $99. It really seems like quite a steal for what you get. And the good thing is, if you're gonna build your first kit, you don't want to, you know, unless you're an experienced solderer and you're used to putting things electronic together, you might not want to get out and get the very latest and expensive stuff and it's going to, you know, use fine soldering. This looks, from the base of it, pretty easy to put together. They've given you all the bits, but there's a lot of like pre-cut lengths and stuff. And I thought it'd be interesting to show just how easy this can go together, or hopefully how easily this will go together, because I haven't done it yet. We'll take a quick peek inside. On opening the box, you get this lot. Stickers, several sets of props, and then you've got the hardware. You've got the electronic bits here, like there's a camera, I can see a flight controller, here's the 4 motors, and here's all the actual hardware for putting it together. It's no good me showing it here, so let's move into a place where we can do a sort of an overhead close-up shot, and we'll go through what we've got there. There is an 11-page quick start. It said it was a manual, and then when you get to it, it says a quick start guide. So it won't like hold your hand through it, but it'll give you the basics. And there shouldn't be much to do. It's mainly going to be like solder the motors onto the SC board, and I'm not sure if the rest of it's done with plugs or needs extra soldering. Obviously, you'll need a receiver, which you might have to solder on. I think we should just dive in and get on with it, shall we? See what happens. Okay, so here we are with the box in close-up land, so we can take a better look at exactly what we get. And as mentioned, stickers, the props. Kind of a bit of a weird pitch prop. These are 50-38 two-bladed props, which is odd, but we get a whole bunch of them. And then in here we also get a piece of carbon fibre cut like a gun, which is different. We got some heat shrink. This appears to be for the arms, battery holders, spanners, loads of screws. We've got, this is like kind of the moulded section that the camera will fit in. Cable ties, battery strap. Got a little pigtail with MSCX2, I think it's RPSMA, I can't remember. Got lots of little connectors, which probably means we've got not too much to solder. A little pagoda antenna. That's the actual frame. Obviously the motors here. Now, when I originally looked at this, I thought this is a bit of a weird choice. A 2150 2206 is seems a bit of an odd speed, especially with just 2-bladed props, but you know, we'll see how they go. Now, these appear to be color-coded with screws, so one's going to be clockwise, one will be counterclockwise. I'll figure out which is which later. In terms of another weak part, it's probably this. This is a little basic Eachine a CMOS camera with a 2.8mm lens. It's CMOS, B, the lens is a little bit narrow, but you know, we'll try it out. There's a possible upgrade thing. The stack is almost built already. It's already just got a little capacitor tacked on, which will hopefully help all the video signal. It's obviously got the ESC board underneath, and you've got all your solder points to do from the motors. And then you've got obviously the flight controller here. And then we've got this little 40 channel VTX, which can do 25, 200, 600 milliwatts. So there's your pile of stuff. So what I did, I actually printed out the manual just to take a quick look through, and it's quite good. I mean, I'm a bit old-fashioned here. I like printing stuff out because I like just, you know, glancing at it. But although it's not too in-depth, it's also fairly good at recognising, you know, what goes where. We've got instructions for the VTX there. We've got instructions about which bolt and or screws to use in what place. Very useful, and a couple of exploded views. Oh look, we've got some Betaflight set up as well, which is quite nice. So it should be easy. So let's, well, it doesn't, I'll tell you what it doesn't tell you. Where's the gun go? So it does quite a lot of things for you, and it looks like, looking in here, it's got a lot of the cabling already done to make life a little bit easier. So this shouldn't be too hard at all. We've only got a few real soldering jobs to take care of. So I'm going to go ahead and build this and hopefully show that, you know, even though you've got to do a couple of solder joints and things, it's nothing too tricky. I'm not going to do it here because this is on the floor, so I'm going to need to rig something so I can film overhead on my desk. So let's do that now. So welcome to my attempt at filming overhead. And before I actually get into the build, what I did is, it might look like I've jumped ahead, I've basically constructed it. And this is so I could see what went together where, and if I had to do anything weird. Like sometimes it's like the case of you don't want to tighten certain things up to get these other things in and stuff. But let me take it apart again, and we'll get on with what to do first, which is going to be this bottom frame piece before we go in and start doing a little bit of the soldering. So let's do that now. Okay, so in the initial part of the frame build, we're going to put the legs together, and they arrange themselves into a little unit like this, with the two holes on the inside if this is facing forward. And what you have to do is put this bit underneath, like that, and then this bit goes on top, this way up. Now in these centre holes from the bottom, these are 12mm screws, and then this outer one from the bottom uses 16mm screw with the nut at the top, and we can't put the middle one in until we get the rest in place. Now if you've got a pair of calipers, then you know it's pretty easy to measure what you've got there. Otherwise, from process of elimination, you can just sort of line them up and work out what's what. So this is going to be a little bit fiddly because we have to basically get our bits through here and get things into place. I could do them all at once. Now we don't need to get this tight to start with, we just need to get it so it's holding in place, and that's because we might need a bit of wiggle room to go through with the next set of screws. Now the screws that go through these holes here are these 14mm screws, and they will go through there and then into the flight controller stack. But before we screw the flight controller in place, we're just going to do a bit of soldering on here, and we're going to tin up these ends ready to put the motor wires in. So we're going to put the frame to the side for a moment and then come back and start soldering this guy. Brilliantly, I've just put together, and I forgot the part that I thought, oh, I must forget to say that. You will find in the kit these little sleeves. Now it's not mentioned in instructions, but if you have a look at the pictures on Banggood, these are to go over the arms to to let the wires go through, and then you can heat shrink them on. They won't go on like this, so they have to go on before you attach the arms. So let's have a quick jump cut and pretend I already had these in place. Well, now we've got the shrink wrap on, it's actually not a bad idea to get the motors on at this point as well, just because we have to poke them through the shrink wrap. Of course, you might prefer to put the motors in place and get the shrink wrap on and then put the arms in. I'm going to do it this way, it's just a case of poking them through. Now, as far as the motors goes, these ones that unscrew normally go in this position where the prop is spinning, what is that, anti-clockwise, and the ones with the blacks should go in the clockwise rotation. So you should end up with that. So let's just push these on through, and then these secure in with the 8mm bolts underneath, and of course you only need 3 of them, or 8mm screws. So let's do a quick jump cut, and there's our jump cut. So if this is forward, the motor's secured, the wires are ready to go in. So the next thing you need to do is a little bit of soldering before we attach anything. We just get that out of the way. Here's the stack of the boards, and if we remove the little risers at the bottom to expose the ESC board. Now originally I thought I'd tin these up, but actually what I think I'll do is put the wires into the holes. But before I put that in place, I want to solder in the battery wire, and I'm probably going to do that, I think, by going underneath like that, just to have that soldered in like so, before I actually mount that in place. Well, once I get these in, then I can go back in here and start looking at soldering these bits in. So let's get on with the soldering part now.
Well, I've speeded this up, and I wasn't talking because I've got a fan on when I solder, but yeah, this is me just soldering in the battery cable complete with my head. And after that I took the frame and I just tinned up each motor wire, so that would basically solder onto the stack nicely. Now normally the flight controller would be held in with the little nylon risers, but I really didn't want to use these because I'd be using my soldering iron in quite close proximity. So I just initially held this in with some screws just loosely there. I just needed to get it in place so I could manipulate the wires as I wanted to, because these kind of need to bend around and to the inside. And after that point it was just a case of soldering each connection. I sort of poked them slightly into the hole and just put some solder on. Again, speeded up and mostly shots of my head in the way, because I have to get my eyes really close to see what I'm doing when I'm actually soldering.
Okay, that was all the soldering we needed to do. So the next thing to do is get this back on, which means putting these underneath and through. And you'll notice I've circled the wires around so I can get them around the insides of these bits. Now before you put the top on this, you'll want to put on this little cable. This joins the ESCs to the flight controller, and you just need to leave one end plugged in so you can plug the other end in. Right, from here start moving these around, keeping it with the arrow forwards. Altogether convinced I've done this in the very best way, but I kind of prefer to do it like this than get my soldering iron anywhere near any of the little nylon or plastic risers, really. So, well, yeah, sometimes it's only by doing it you think, oh, I've made that awkward for myself, but yeah, maybe I should have done it with the risers already on, but you know, they're okay. So anyway, the next thing to do is get those middle screws in and on those nylon risers, so thus securing the stack. At this point you can certainly tighten up all the other bits as you need to, and then we can go ahead and connect the ESC to the flight controller, like so. So, next bit to do is connect up the camera and the VTX and the rest of the frame. Not much more to do. Now, what's nice about this, the rest of the connectors are very simple. We've got these in the box and they all come ready to go. So this one plugs in here and then that's already wired to go to the camera. This one here plugs in the side like so, and then the other end of it goes to the VTX, which is going to be here. And finally this one here is for your receiver. That plugs in there, and then you'd have a PPM or an S-Bus receiver for it. But rather than do it this way round, what we'd actually do is get this thing built, get the plugs in this side, and then screw this on that way. So this has already been built from the previous thing I mentioned when I put it all together. But let's take this apart and I'll show you exactly how it goes together and how to connect these bits on before we plug in here and then finally attach at the bottom. Okay, building the two side panels are pretty easy. Obviously there's two of them, so do this twice, but you've got this carbon bit and this aluminium bit. If you stick that over that one, you've then got these three screws that are the M3 6mm, and these go in here. It's hard to do when you're looking at yourself in the camera. Yeah. And up at the top of it. So you should have two bits that look like this, and what you're going to do is join them together, where this is the inside bit. You'll also need these tiny Phillips screws for the camera, and what I've gone ahead and done here is put that in that middle slot there to hold the camera in. I've put the camera wire in, so that's ready to go, and if I just do that, oh, and you notice this piece here, which is then held in with one of these longer 12mm screws. So if we get that there, that goes there, this bit will go there. But don't do that tightly yet, because the other things you need to do is put these bits in here and here, and if they're too tight they will not fit. And these are all held in with these little 4mm screws. Okay. Just looks like this. Okay, the VTX is obviously going to sit here, but I don't want to secure it in place yet until I've got my channel number sorted out, because right now I don't know what I'm running. But obviously I need to put the antenna on before I can do that. So this seems quite a bit of a tight squeeze. Let's see how it looks. And the MMC steps need to go in there like so. So before I fix this in place, I've got two things to do. I want to power this up so I can get my VTX channel, and although I said I've finished soldering, it kind of depends what receiver you're going to use. I'm going to snip this and put my S-Bus receiver in place so I can plug that in and have it all ready and decide exactly where it's going to go when I put the top on. So let's do that now. Okay, so one thing that doesn't come with the kit is a receiver. I've got this old XM Plus that I've just put a new antenna on because it got chewed up, so I'm gonna desolder this and resolder it to this connector. So I'm just going to cut this down. I don't know how much we need. I'm going to call it about there. going to snip that. Strip a dilly bit of cable on each one. Okay, so that now should be it in terms of soldering. I'm not gonna. I'd normally put a bit of a heat shrink on here, but I need to bind it first. So I need access to that button. So ignore that for a second. But we'll just put it in place there, so we know it's ready, and then we can sort that out. We'll put the time. In the meantime, what we can do is take our completed body section. You see, we've got this VTX just loose here. And we can go ahead and plug in the camera, plug in the VTX, it's got plenty of wire at the moment anyway. Okay, if you're wondering what that slight palaver was about, it was here, the ESC wires need to go in and just inside here, so we had enough space to get that down there. Now, again, it's almost like, well, you don't know it until you come to see it, but there you go. It's really just a case of poking it through and finding out it's there. I mean, in retrospect, it would be easier to build the section onto the frame individually. So M3 times 6 for this part. Okay, well that's the basis of the build. Let's actually get a battery, plug it in, and see if it just explodes now, which would be interesting. Alright, stand by for magic smoke. Yep, that's encouraging. One thing I want to do while I was here is see what this is set to, and it's A1 power 2, so what I think I'd do is hold this in for 2 seconds. Okay, that's the channel number. I want to set it to F1. And this is D. Right, so it now says D1 2 dot, which I think is the power. It does not say how to change the power. I'll find that bit out in a sec. I think that's at 200, and that's why it's so damn hot already. So let's turn it off. So next thing to do is to, well, let's have a look in Betaflight and see what's happening there. Okay, so I've just set a model up for this one, so I'm going to head and go in and bind it. And we want to hold down this button, which is always tricky, whilst getting this in place like so. So that looks like it should be bound. What I've done, I've just unplugged this as well. So if we now plug that in, we have got a nice green light. So that's cool. Now when I go into Betaflight, I can set up all the flight modes as well and make sure my sticks are all in the right place. Right then, got my radio, got the quad. So let's go ahead and plug into Betaflight. Ah, that's handy. I do like it when it gives the power to the receiver. Let's connect. Let's see what is set up now. Currently that is nice and flat, so while I'm here, we'll do a calibrate accelerometer. Cool. Ports. Now it's actually got some relatively useful things in the instructions here about what to do, and it says serial is under UART2, which it already is, that's cool. And if we go to the configuration, that's set to 1 shot 125, so let's set that to DShot 600. Let's put motor stop in, because I like motor stop. It's got an 8K, 2K loop, I'm not bothered about that. Serial, yep, and S-bus, that's cool. Got loads of beeper configuration, of course it hasn't actually got a beeper. That's one of the things you do notice. Craft name, let's set that up. As per usual, my one is always set to K. So reboot. Wow, it's running Betaflight 350. Never even used 350 before, so this will be interesting. Okay, PID-wise. Well, that's all looking default. I'm just going to up my rates to 0.8 because that's what I like. Save that. Go to receiver.
So you notice here my receiver doesn't seem to be working. At first I thought maybe it was the wrong UART, so I went through and I checked all of those and it all seemed fine. So what I then decided to do is open up the quad again to see if I'd missed something in the connection.
Okay, having just stripped that down, we can see on the flight controller here there seems to be this thing that says S-bus on this side, PPM, DSM, iBus. Now I think this is suggesting you bridge these two for S-bus or these two for PPM, DSM or iBus. So I'm going to try bridging those two and see how we get on. So yep, soldering iron is out again just to do this little bit. Yeah, it's not amazing, but it'll do the job. Yep, that little bridge seems to have done the trick. And now I'm actually getting movement in here. So pretty poor that they didn't mention that in the control sheets. They're just like, yep, that'll just work. But yeah, you have an extra stage too. So what I'm going to do while I'm here, I think I'm going to put some heat shrink on this and get things routed about a bit better so I can put the top back on, and then we'll sort out the rest of the Betaflight config. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, the top is back on. Let us plug in and sort out the receiver configuration. So we are connected. We have our controller plugged in. So if we now go to receiver, we can see that we are looking pretty good. All good there. So I'm going to set up my modes. Arming is this one. And it's quite handy that it's Betaflight will set things up automatically for you. We have angle set to here. Cool, and I have beeper set to there. That's one. And then I have ammo set to here. All there. And we did have flip over crash assigned to this little stubby one here. No, it's not Ox 12, the thing. It is Ox 4. Yeah, Ox 4. The reason Ox 12 is coming up is because I deliberately didn't put it on yet. It's because RSSI is on channel 12. So we can add that to it there. And we've got just a very slight twiddle on the roll. Let's sort that out before we go any further. So it's just My sub-trim being slightly up. Yeah, that's better. Right, I'm going to check out my motor directions again. Oh, actually, before I do that, OSD. What I'm going to do is make sure that it's on the fat shocks. So, this is quite nice because it happens live, but this can be dragged down a bit. Looks like I've actually got a PAL camera. Yep, I can go all the way to the bottom. Yep, I'm happy with that. Let's save that. We can unplug that battery. Unplug that VTX. It overheats. I'm going to plug the battery in again. One thing I need to see is how the motors are spinning. So we're going to say, I understand the risks. Let's have a look. So that one's spinning wrong. That one's spinning wrong. That one's spinning wrong. They're all spinning in exactly the wrong direction, which is fun. Okay. Let's connect this with BLheli. Reading the setup. What have we got there? Disconnect all the files and make others. Right, we are running 16.7, that's good. And we need to basically reverse every single one of these motors. And then write that setup back again. And let's try it again. Go back to Betaflight. Motors. We understand. And this one needs to be running outwards. Yep, that's cool. This one needs to be running outwards. This one needs to be running south. Yep, and that needs to be running inwards. Yep, all good. So the only thing I think I need to do here is do a DShot beacon, because right now, if I was to turn on beeper mode.
Welcome to OpenTX. Switch warning. Manual.
Nothing happens.
Manual.
And I can on it. That's cool. But you will notice a lack of beeper.
Manual.
So let's use the DShot beeper command. So go to CLI. DShot beacon. Spell it right. Let's hit midpoint. Alright, there was a little bit of change there in 3.5. So the command I'd normally use is this one. Set beacon tone. Set beeper DShot beacon tone, and that would work. In this version, you can set it for different event on or off. So by saying beacon all, it means it responds to RX set and signal lost. So if we then save that, if I now try my lost model, well, not lost model, just beeper in general. Okay, that's better. So we've got the motors running the right way. We've got DShot beeper set up. We've got all the bits in place. So what I think we'll do is next we'll just get this fixed in. I've got the cable ties ready to go. Got this going over. We'll put a couple of cable ties here to hold these in, and yeah, then we'll find out how to actually connect a battery to it properly and see if we can fly it. Okay, so we've got the VTX in, and we've just put a couple of these other cable ties which are in the box on. What you don't get is any heat shrink to put them on with. I found this disgusting green colour which looks around the right size. So I'm just going to slide that down and secure these in with a little bit of heat. Well, they've got a little bit of heat in them, it's quite easy just to get them into the shape you want. Right, and I think we're now in a position to put a bit of heat shrink on these ones, because I'm fairly happy that the motors are all spinning up right and we're fairly ready to go. Okay, all built, but battery wise, obviously, you know, wouldn't want to go against here, and we've got this little plate here, and of course that's got nowhere to fix as well. So what do? Nothing in the instructions, but we do have these few bits, which I think that would go on that way and that would go on the underneath. So that's what I'm going to do until I see better. The battery through here is normal, the battery strap, then we'd come through here like so, so effectively the battery would go there, and so we end up with this situation. That's my best bet anyway. Let's pop some props on. These look absolutely bizarre, these props, I have to say. I've never used anything like these before, especially on a two-bladed. I'd say we're ready for a garden hover. Hello, and welcome to the field on a glorious day. Unseasonably warm for this part of the year. We're here to test the Tyro99, the little $99 build, see how it goes. It's kind of interesting because being autumn now, the sun, it's like midday and it's not as high in the sky. And if there's a weak point to this one, I think it's perhaps this little CMOS sensor in the camera and the fact it's a 2.8mm lens. But with this much light, I don't think it's going to worry too much. But it'd be interesting in these sort of darkened areas, see if it handles the light, well, see if it flies first. So we're going to get this up for the normal little line of sight hover just to make sure it's all okay, because we haven't tried it yet. And then we'll take it out for an FPV flight, see how it does. Right then, let's see how this goes.
Arms.
A little bit of noise. I feel like there's some vibration there, but I don't know if it's just these weird props. I mean, other than that, it looks like it's fairly good, it just sounds not quite right. Well, let's bring it in and take it out for a proper flight and we'll see. Oh, I should do like a punch thing, shouldn't I, to see what happens. Well, no particular complaints there. Okay, FPV Maiden, why am I looking in the sky? I've put the external camera on so you can see how far forward I need to come just to see the grass. I'm basically shredding the grass to take off. Yep, this is a narrow camera, and even with a moderate tilt, it's all wrong for this quad. It's just you can't have up tilt with a camera this narrow. And it sort of feels like everything's flowing past rather than me turning, and there's some noise as you can see there. And oh my god, when we try and do a roll, it just feels so wrong. So my initial thought was something's really wrong here. So I decided to bring it in for a landing and check it out properly. I say a landing, I bring it down anyway. Well, I just tried to fly that and it was truly horrible. And I just landed it and then took it for another line of sight flight and bashed it around a bit, and it was absolutely fine. So I think it's down to this camera. Well, the narrowness of the camera is making things go around. So when I tried to do a spin, it was like I was yawing. But if we look at this angle here, it's, you know, it's at a normal angle I would go out on a quad. But I'm going to change this and put this much flatter and try it again and see if I can actually see what's happening, because things were just flowing past my view instead of me feel like I was flying. Let's try that again in a second. That is about as flat as I can make the angle before the camera actually hits. So it's slightly up. I would say it's like 10-15 degrees, very much beginner angle. So let's try that again, see if it's any better. Okay, so this is the second FPV flight with the changed angle, and I don't know if you can see it, but it feels better anyway. That said, not amazing. So although I did you know, a good 4-minute flight here, just checking it out and getting used to it, what I decided to do is come back and just do a little bit of a tune just to see if I could take away some of these small wobbles I was getting. Okay, so this is the last battery I did in the day after doing just the little bit of the tunes, and all I did was move things down a little bit, so hopefully trying to remove some of those little micro wobbles. And the quad doesn't feel too bad in terms of its flight, at least. It feels relatively smooth, but because of that camera angle, it's really well, it's so unfamiliar, because I'm so used to having a nice wide angle and being able to do stuff. I mean, I'm slightly more used to it here, and I'm trying to fly my sort of more regular route. If you go and have a look back at any of my other review quad videos, you'll be able to see what this looks like through a sort of normal camera and how I would fly it. What I would say is, although we've got the camera angle at a point where I can see what I'm doing, it's not particularly useful for going fast. So it's really meandering here, and the quad's got plenty more power, but I can't get the nose down, else I'm just literally looking at grass. And if I point the camera angle up, it's really difficult to fly. So, you know, we end up with this thing where I'm in a really weird sort of low throttle meandering about situation, which is a bit boring to say the least. But that's just all the fault of this camera and the lens. The actual light handling on the camera's not too bad. We've got a very bright day here, so this is where it's going to do well. Obviously there's that noise, and I tend to think this is, you know, the not particularly good power regulation through the flight controller is probably what it is. It does already have that capacitor on it, which is taking some of the noise away, but certainly it's not taking it all. Now, I was going to come back and I was going to carry on tuning to see if I could make things better and better every time, as I normally would. But there's a problem here. It's when you've got the wrong lens to be able to tune on, it's kind of hard to know what the goal you're going for, because the narrower the lens like this, the more magnified any small wobble is. So sometimes this is looking actually fairly smooth, and other times there's a little wobble. But I'm thinking, okay, if I was on something like a 2.1mm lens here, would I actually see that, or would I just think, yeah, that's just a tiny bit of prop wash or something? And I question these props. They're again unfamiliar with me, so I decided I couldn't really do much more on the tune, because it's like, well, that's just a case of this is how this thing is. I don't really know what my end goal is here, in terms of how good do I think I can get it, because I'm not particularly enjoying flying it with this type of lens. But there you go. It builds, it certainly flies. It just is really very much let down by this camera and the lens issue.
So here we are at the conclusion, and I'm slightly stuck on what to say about it. Because on the one hand, I think it's a really good idea to get people, doing some sort of basic build, because it kind of loses the intimidation factor of, messing around with parts and soldering things and putting together. And it's a great way of learning how you do put stuff together, how you do, fix problems when they break them. But it's so let down by this camera. This camera is crap. It's horrible. And I can't tell how well it would fly because that camera's there. I mean, it's got some noise issues as well, but it's a $99 quad at the end of the day, so you kind of expect that. It's kind of hard for me to think, who would I recommend this to? Because I wouldn't say, this is a great quad, go and get it, because it's not. It's got some problems, and they really do need fixing. If it's the case of you're wanting to dip your toe in, and you might enjoy the fact that you have to build it, and you like the fact that you're going to have to upgrade bits later on, because that involves, opening it up again and swapping it out, then this is the sort of thing that would appeal for you. If you're literally a beginner coming in trying to get a quad that will, fly nicely and teach you how to fly, then it's not great, because with that camera, you're not gonna. It's going to be difficult to learn to fly. It's going to need replacing, and that's going to be, an extra 10 or 20 quid. And at that point, you're like, well, do I buy something better? Because at this point, there's other kits about which are better than this one for a little bit more. I mean, you can buy ready-to-fly quads, which are a little bit more, but it depends what you're in it for. Are you in it to just fly a quad and get something cheap? Or do you like the building aspect? So this is for people who like the building aspect very cheaply and don't mind spending a little bit more to upgrade later. For other guys, I'd have to say, if you're looking to get into the quads, spend a little bit more and get a ready-to-fly model or a better kit, because this is okay, and I think it will fly better once the camera's replaced. But it's okay. It's built to a budget, so I can't really recommend it for everybody. Only certain people. But there you go. Links are down below. Thanks for Banggood for sending it. And if you guys are really interested in seeing what can be done if we swap things out and stuff, let me know. Otherwise, it's like a fun line of sight quad, but I wouldn't want to FPV it anymore. Anyway, I hope that was useful. If you got to the end, congratulations. I've had to watch it during the edit, and I bore myself sometimes. Anyway, I will catch you in the next video. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.